because Sharia law states, and we've stated this many times, that you either convert, you become a slave and pay a tax, or you die. Those are your options.
It's called Jihad for Kids. And it showed like a Mickey Mouse character, and he was dancing with the kids, and a 4-year-old girl, 5-year-old girl was passionately shrieking, I want to march into Jerusalem, and I'm going to blow myself up. Here, go to school. I packed a bomb in your lunch, and when you blow yourself up and I read about you on the news, I'll be so proud of you.
All right, welcome out to God and Country. I'm Uriah Kennedy, and this is Ingrid Bettridge. This week we are bringing back a couple of older guests. From podcast number 2, we've got Selwyn Gordon, and then I think it's podcast number 9, we've got Marshall Myers that did our Holocaust. Marshall and Selwyn, how are you guys doing today?
Good. Thank you for the opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
So the reason why we're bringing both Selwyn and Marshall back is obviously what happened on Monday. Trump was able to secure a massive peace deal between Israel and Gaza, something that nobody thought was possible. I mean, this is going clear back to before even Clinton, when even Clinton tried to do it back in 2005. And Yasser Arafat was just saying no to everything. Just no. He says, I'd love to be able to create the deal, but if I went back with this thing, they'd crucify me. And you go clear back to 47, there's been war after war after war created by Hamas and by terrorist organizations. And one of the main things we want to talk about today is my comment section goes wild every single time we have an Israel subject, and everybody wants to blame Israel for everything. So we've created several videos distilling that and showing that Israel's not the problem, but Sharia law is. We've put that video out a couple times, and a lot of other discussions on the subject. But this week we want to discuss what happened a little bit on what happened on October 7th, but more just the tremendous news that happened this past week on the hostages getting released. That's stage 1. And then moving forward from there to the next few stages and seeing if Hamas is really going to disarm, which is the big question in everybody's mind right now.
Yeah, what's next?
What's next? Are they really going to disarm? We want to start off with, I'm going to start off kind of with the sadder subjects of what happened to kind of relate to everybody's mind what really happened on October 7th. And we'll discuss those, and then we're going to move to the good videos, the heartwarming videos of the hostages being released. So we're going to go from the tougher subject to the more glorious and hateful subjects, and see what everybody thinks here.
The first house we saw, what? Was a couple, father and mother, sitting there on the knees on the floor. They were on the knees. Now they were head down, hands tied to the back. On the other side of the dining room was a 7-year-old boy and a girl, I would say about 6 years old, sitting just against the parents, hands tied to the back, same position. The bodies were tortured. While now, start to use imagination, who was tortured before, who saw if this was on purpose, if this was the children looking at the parents being tortured, the parents seeing, and when I say tortured, I will say missing body pieces. An eye, just taken out an eye, one eye, fingers being.
I mean, that's just one video. I just tough it. I didn't want to continue it because it gets pretty graphic. It gets pretty graphic what happened on October 7th. And there's still a lot of people out there that downplay it. When I've mentioned that they put babies and burn babies in ovens, I had so many people in my comments section said, what are you talking about, burning babies? They never did that. Just completely incredulous. And even CNN's talking about it, about that actually happened. Bill Maher was talking about it yet. And just still, to this day, I have so many people in my comments
How
section.
wonderful for them that they can just be ignorant of it all.
Just
Great to not have those images in your head.
denying everything, just denying everything. I'll show two more, and then we're going to get your guys' opinion on this.
ואצבע ראיתי בחוץ קשורות עם הידיים קפוץ. רצח אותם, אנס אותם, תעלל בהם, פה בעצים האלה. מעל 30 בנות נרצחו ונאנסו פה. הייתי צריך לסגור את הרגליים שלהם, לכסות את הגופות שלהם. שאף אחד לא יראה מה שאני ראיתי, אף אחד. ואף אחד לא יכול לראות דברים כאלה.
One boy with two girls. He was with the pants down, with no underwear, and the head of the girl, one of the girls, was on him. It's difficult.
I mean, this is real trauma for everyone. And that's why we're doing it again, so that the world can see.
These two sisters, Yael, who was 13, and Noya, who was 16, were brutally murdered alongside their mother, Leanne. Think about that for a second. Yael was just a child, full of laughter, always making people smile. And Noya, her sister, was artistic, thoughtful, and a teenager just starting to dream about her future. Hamas terrorists ended their lives before they had a chance to grow up. The two daughters were found lifeless, cuddled together, with their mother Leanne doing what a mother does best, holding her babies in her arms, trying to protect them at all costs. Their father, Eli Sharabi, was dragged into Gaza as a hostage, and after months of starvation, beatings, and being trapped in a tunnel, he was finally released. But instead of seeing his beautiful family, he came home to silence, to an empty house, to a future that will never be the same. Now, I want you to leave politics aside for just a moment. This is about two little girls, a mother, and a father who carries a grief most of us cannot even imagine. While the world's media tries to make you forget the reason why we're in Gaza, I'm here to remind you, we will never forget.
כשנכנסתי לעזה, ראיתי הרבה אנשים וכזה הרביצו וזה. התחלנו לשמוע יריות וצעקות בערבית, הם חיכו לנו.
Who was hitting you? Were they just normal citizens in Gaza? Were they Hamas? Do you know who they were?
אזרחים.
They were civilians. Were you scared?
קצת האמת.
Were you hungry?
כן. אכלתי פיתה ליום ומלפפון.
Did they tell you what was happening in Israel?
כן, הם הראו לי סרטים וזה. שהם הורגים אנשים. הם היו שמחים האמת.
And did you try to look away?
לא, כי במילא לא היה נותן לי. גם ראיתי דברים יותר רעים, גם ראיתי באמיתי, בעולם האמיתי. כאילו אצלי בראש כל הזמן.
Do you sleep well at night?
לא הרבה האמת. כאילו, עברתי את הכי גרוע וזהו.
Well, just so everybody knows, I mean, I just found us a few videos. There's just dozens and dozens and dozens of these things all over the internet. And I tried to find some that were more reflective, that were kind of had a clear message on them and not necessarily so graphic, because there's videos out there that are bad. And I've seen a lot of them doing my research for this podcast. I've seen stuff that you just don't want to see. It was tormenting me just trying to find some videos that I could show on the podcast where I wouldn't get screened by YouTube, because most of the videos I was finding were not on YouTube. They're on other media platforms that allow stuff like that. But I haven't seen anything even remotely close to this since Holocaust videos. I can't even imagine what the Jewish people have gone through, because there's not another people on this planet that have gone through what your people have gone through, between the Holocaust, between October 7th, and just continuous oppression. And yet people still think that Israel starts all this, that they're the source of these issues. And there's just so much anti-Semitism out there. It just surprises me. But on the same time, I see a lot of people backing up Israel. I've watched several those big, massive Christian churches where the pastors get up there and they're all completely for Israel and supporting Israel and talking about Israel. And there's 40,000 people in the building all supporting it. So there's the good side and the bad side. But I see there's a pretty good split going on right now. But what happened on October 7th is just absolutely atrocious. They just violent and just sheer evil is all I can explain that to be. Just absolute evil. And now we're having to negotiate with these same people in order to bring peace. So, Marshall, let's start with you for the Holocaust side of this thing. What's your opinion on what happened on that day?
It's interesting that today, you mentioned about seeing things on YouTube. Today I showed a very powerful video to my classroom not 2 hours ago called a birthday in the Warsaw Ghetto. There are different titles to Google it. Like, it's called a day in the Warsaw Ghetto. And it was a Nazi officer who was given a day in the Warsaw Ghetto to go in, and he secretly took pictures, kept the pictures over 4 decades, and then called in someone from a German magazine, and they published the negatives and they made it into this narrative. And it's interesting that YouTube also had warnings to log in on a smartboard, warnings of violence. I think that the unfortunate correlation is really a deep one. And I think, as you said so well, it's these major events. And I saved it. I didn't mention in class today, but I saw on the internet, and I'm quoting, with a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas bringing hostilities in Gaza to a halt, a trend has emerged online of Palestinians claiming to be, quote unquote, Holocaust survivors. So, even like the local Chicago Tribune, which is not exactly pro-Israel at all, keeps mentioning in their articles, and they kind of qualify it. Well, only at the end of the article, the war started with what Hamas did. A local Holocaust survivor said, what's happening now in America in terms of the anti-Semitism is worse than pre-war Germany. So, the sad part is that there's so much misinformation out there. And as you said, the comments you get, and I think the resilience of the Jewish people is clearly on display here on one hand. But on the other hand, one of the local rabbis in the community told me, he said, there aren't enough social workers in Israel to handle this situation. It is such an intense situation. And sadly, you see this little 13-year-old boy who's, you want nothing more for him to grow up and have a family and children, but he's going to be traumatized forever. And I don't think that the world understands fully what happened. As you said, people deny it. And I think all we can do is really continue to be truthful and continue to say what happens. And if nothing else, Israel wants peace so badly in the Middle East. And as you said at the beginning, Hamas has to disarm, and it's not going to, I doubt it'll happen. And then the next step will be, what do we do now? How do we eliminate that? But I think the answer is we have to just teach our children the right way, our children, our families, that violence is bad, and that we have to focus on being good people and doing good things in the world.
Hey, this is Uriah Kennedy with the God and Country podcast, and one of the main reasons why I live in the Rocky Mountains in Utah is because there is nothing I enjoy more like getting out in the great outdoors. I absolutely love getting out there and camping, hiking, fishing, everything with my family. We do that every single year. Throughout the winter months, we're up there snowmobiling. The summer months, we're out there RVing or ATVing. We absolutely love it. It's the best time of the year we have together as a family. There's nothing like getting out there with the proper equipment. And we all know and trust Coleman since we were kids. Our parents, our grandparents have used Coleman for generations. They have the best tents, sleeping bags, coolers, cooking materials, and anything else you can possibly think of that you might need while you're out there enjoying the great outdoors. Please support our channel by going to the link in our description or scanning the QR code that's popping up on your screen and going to Coleman to buy all these needs. Whatever it is you can possibly think of, again, from stoves, tents, sleeping bags, coolers, any type of camping utensils, cooking utensils, fuel, whatever it is you can possibly need, click on the link in our description or the QR code that's popping up on your screen. Support the channel by buying any of this outdoor equipment at Coleman. We love the wide variety of products that Coleman has made over the years and how trustworthy those products have been. Coleman has a world-renowned name, something we've grown up trusting, and if you can think of it, they probably have it. So again, click on the link in our description or scan the QR code popping up your screen. Support this channel and keep watching. Just the amount of violence that occurred there is just, I can't imagine, because the one guy talks about how there was two boys and a girl and they literally decapitated all of them, started switching heads. There's other stories I saw where they're decapitating a lot of them and they'd go into the houses and still find the bodies and just the heads were gone, just gone. They took the heads back to Gaza with them and just carried them back. And then they showed videos of them using the heads of soccer balls inside of Gaza. There's the story of the women with that or two daughters, and they're both just, you can tell that they had them kneel down and they just shot them in the back of the head, all three of them together. There's that torture one. Then there's lots of torture videos, just tons of them, where the parents saw their kids tortured or mutilated. And what I mean, as a father, I'm supposed to be the protector. I don't know what's going to go through my mind. If that was happening to my kids, I'd be going ballistic.
The people who committed these atrocities have been desensitized as children to hate, to see that kind of violence, it's nothing to them.
And they're taught from kids to be martyrs. They're taught
from childhood.
And they're taught to not care about death. They're just nothing important. Selwyn, what's your opinion on it?
Well, I really look at it always as a Jewish opinion. Having grown up in South Africa, South Africa we always knew we were Jewish, even though we weren't maybe religious, but we always stood out. It's a bit different to America. America's a melting pot. South Africa was always like, you knew who you were. Everyone was different. And so I come from this slant. As a Jew living outside of Israel, I think our job is we have to be strong for Israel. So if there's anti-Semitism and if there's, people that are anti-Israel, we have to stand strong. It doesn't mean we have to go and start, we're not violent people naturally. Marshall, you'll agree with me. Naturally, we're not violent people. We don't believe in violence. However, I do believe that we have to be strong and we have to stand with Israel and understand that our challenge outside of Israel is to always back Israel, because they are they are in the right. There's no question about it. You can't look at this whole conflict and say, maybe they shouldn't have bombed that building or done this or done that. They did everything, in my mind, as best as they could. They risked married people that had children, families. They went in and they put them in buildings that were booby-trapped. They didn't have to do that, but they did it because they didn't want to harm women and children. So if you ask me, that's our challenge as Jews living outside of Israel. Should always be strong for Israel. And the second thing is that I don't think we'll ever get, and in saying that, we're never going to get the world to agree, because I think anti-Semitism is a cultural thing that's sort of been around throughout history since the Bible. So if someone is anti-Semitic, you're not going to get him to change his mind. It's almost like a cultural thing to say, that's how he's been brought up. I've seen it many times. You can't convince them to agree with you. So you have to just say, you know what, I'm going to just stand up to it as best I can. And then with regards to this whole thing with Hamas, my hope and prayer is that Israel has shown that they are the power of the Middle East. They've defeated Iran. They've defeated Hezbollah. Syria is no longer a threat. I mean, maybe they'll even have an agreement with them that they won't have any, war. I don't think we can ever be, great friends with them. But I think they have to behave like that they are the strongest, and if they have to go back and take out Hamas, they have to do it with a force, because now there are no hostages there. That is just, and I think that's what Trump's hinting, if I'm reading his mind right, that if Hamas doesn't disarm, then they will going to be met with an unbelievable force that will, blow them to obliteration. And that's what they deserve, in a sense. They're still given a lifeline. They still can live and fight, not fight, but live another day where they don't deserve that. So if you ask me, that will be, hopefully they'll hold to that, and through that they will have, I don't think it's going to be a loving peace, but a peace with the neighbors and the Arab states, because they'll understand that they are the strongest country in the Middle East by far. I don't think any other country could, is as gutsy as Israel. They just aren't. And they've proven that time and time again. So, that I just feel so good about being.
The funny thing about what you're saying there is they're the smallest country over there by far. I mean, they're just slightly bigger than the state of Delaware, which is tiny, tiny.
Right.
And yet the amount of fight that they have in them, and you're completely surrounded. If it wasn't for the United States, I don't think Egypt would be supporting you guys. I don't think Jordan would be supporting you guys. And yet, because of Trump, you got fairly decent relationship with Egypt. You got fairly decent relationship with Jordan. The Pakistani president was completely on board, which is huge. Obviously, Trump just negotiated a peace deal between Pakistan and India, which helped that whole situation. And I don't think it would have been as easy to negotiate with Pakistan if it wasn't for that peace deal that got struck between India and Pakistan.
Right.
Because they had a lot of bloodshed going on there. So there's a lot of things that kind of cued into this, to kind of make this thing happen. I mean, we take this thing way back to several months ago when Trump went over there to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates with all those CEOs of Apple. I think Microsoft was over there. A number of other people went over there, and they just were creating all these business deals. And I think the Saudis, as well as the Arab Emirates, were committing well over $1 trillion in investment into the United States and bringing that kind of cash flow in here. So they have a lot of financial investment into making sure that the peace sticks, because they've put up all this money, and Trump could really, knock that down if peace were to exist over there. Because he's relying on these other countries saying, look, if this doesn't stick, it's not the United States that's going to be putting boots in the ground. It's not Israel that's going to be putting boots on this ground. This peace depends on you guys regulating your own people. So if Hamas decides not to disarm, it has to be Pakistanis, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis that put the boots on the ground and bring Hamas under control. And I think Hamas knows and understands that they're not going to be fighting the Israelis. They're not going to be fighting the United States if they choose not to obey the terms of the agreement. It's going to be
But they have to be
other
sitting
Muslim
there
nations
right now with this time off, cooking up something.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note that Indonesia says they're sending 20,000 troops. It's the most populous Muslim country. 20,000 Indonesian troops. I mean, and Gaza's tiny. You're talking 20 square miles by 60. Starting 120 square miles and 20,000 troops. I think Hamas has only gone into this peace deal because they realized their backs were really against the wall and they were about to get annihilated, and they didn't have much choice.
I'll give my thoughts behind what happened. I think that because Israel attacked Qatar, where the leaders were, the leaders there said, we got to get this deal done because we're not going to be around. And basically they pushed the guys in Gaza, because the guys in Gaza could have just, they didn't care. I mean, they're a bunch of, they would have welcomed fighting till the last man, and maybe even killing all the hostages. But I think that's where the pressure came as well. And the Qataris were also like, hey, you better figure this out, because we don't want to get bombed again, and we don't want Israel just flying in and doing what they want to do, because they can get to anyone. Anyway, that's my thought. I don't know if I'm right. I'm not saying I'm right.
I think you're right on. So I put a video out on Tuesday, the day after the whole peace thing went out, and you guys can go back and watch the video, and everybody in the audience can go back and watch that video. But I lay it out over 37-minute video, pretty detailed of my opinion on how this all came to pass. And it has to go back with, number one, the strength of Israel by far, because the IDF, the Israeli Defensive Forces, took out well over 60,000 of Hamas soldiers, people, whatever you want to call them, including their leadership. They're down to their third generation of leadership, because the top tier and then the second tier were all killed off, including the bombing in Qatar, a few bombings up in Iran itself, plus everything that they've done in Hamas. I mean, they didn't care where that leadership went. They were targeting them and says, borders are not a problem right now. We're at the point where we're going to take you guys out to take you guys out. So now you're down at what we would consider in football terms third string, because first string's taken out, second string's taken out.
Isn't the long-term job.
Yeah, third string leadership down there. So you're now at third string leadership. Plus, you've got all the neighboring nations, like I said, are now doing financial agreements and big business agreements with Trump, the United States, and they're now not on Hamas's side. And then you top that off with Trump bombing Iran and taking out their nuclear capabilities, and the sheer show of force he did. He didn't just throw down just a couple bombs, just enough to take out the nuclear sites. No, he sent a message, because he put in 6 or 7 of these massive bunker-busting bombs into the same hole over and over and over again to make sure it was annihilated. And then they sent upwards, I think it was like 18 Tomahawks, just to finish it up, just to make sure nothing was going to be over there. So it was far beyond what they needed, way beyond what they needed. But I think he did it on purpose, because he wanted to show force. And I have to refer back to our second podcast with you, Selwyn. The one comment that has stuck with me this entire time is they don't understand negotiating. The second you start negotiating with them, they feel that as a weakness, and it's the time that they attack. You're weak now, it's time for attack. So the only thing that they understand is strength. That's it. That's all they understand. They don't understand negotiating.
They respect you when you're strong.
You're respected. But I think the neighbors respect you when you're strong too. I think that culture is in the Saudis and the Jordanians and the Egyptians. And so they're seeing the strength of Trump and how strong he is, and now losing support for the neighbors, plus what he did to Iran, and only because of that show of force were they willing to go into this agreement. Obviously, being third-string leaders and not really having experience would help quite a ways, because the Israelis, you guys really took out a lot of their leadership. I want to show one video about this specific topic, and then I want to get both of your opinion on just show of strength and what that means to that Muslim culture over there. So let's watch this real quick, and you'll see what I mean real quick.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before, we felt like nothing is happening, you know? And I remember for me, ever since he came into the road, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted...
Who?
Terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. Yeah. So immediately the way they treated me changed. So if it's the amount of food, I could say this, that when Trump became president, yeah, the way they treated us changed. For me personally, this is what I
think
felt.
because they anticipated that a deal would come soon.
Yeah.
And that's when they started giving you more food.
Exactly. More food, treated me better, you know, stopped cursing me, stopped spitting on me.
They were spitting and cursing?
Yeah.
Were they beating you?
No, never. I was never, except the 7th of October, I was never abused physically. But I think it's because the way I managed around.
The relationship.
Yeah.
So, what's your opinion? I mean, let's start with you, Selwyn. Show of strength, obviously. He said specifically that the second Trump got into office, not even started peace talks yet, just got into office, they already knew what was coming because of how strong he was compared to how weak Biden was.
I think that, I mean, listen, you don't have to be I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not a political scientist. But I just, you know, for all the so-called flaws that Trump has, he calls a spade a spade. He understands that, you know, that these guys are evil. He calls them out. Of course they were scared because they were having their way when Biden was president. You know, Israel was fighting with one hand tied behind their back. And I'm sure they knew that Trump would have said, okay, you want to, you know, I'm going to give you free rein to do what you have to do to win this war. Because, you know, he understood what was right and what was wrong. I think if you voted for Kamala Harris as an American, you should be ashamed of yourself. Not because maybe you're a Democrat, but like right and wrong, you know, they can't even say what's right and what's wrong. It's absolutely embarrassing, like that she got as many votes as she did. And, you know, especially if you're Jewish and you voted for her, you should be even more embarrassed. Because, you know, there's a moral side to this whole thing, and you know, these were evil people. So
well, elaborate on just that show of strength that you were referring to in our second podcast there, because you made a great point on you have to show strength because these guys don't understand negotiating.
They don't. I mean, you have to. You can't. Peace is not peace because they all of a sudden wake up the next day and say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of my little kid becoming, like dying or potentially becoming a fighter. They don't make those things. Israeli mothers would love their kids not to be in the army. Okay, they would love it. I've seen it. I lived there for 5 years. You know, Israeli young guys that were in college with me couldn't stand the fact they had to go and do camps every year and leave their studies. And okay, so it's a different mentality. But they also understood they had to be strong, otherwise the enemy would overrun them. It's just the way it is. And the only thing they will make peace on is respect and understand that you're much stronger than them. That's what it is. And that's why these Arab countries are coming to the table, because they understand that with Trump and supporting Israel the way he does, openly, that Israel is the strongest country in the Middle East by far. And therefore they should, if they got a few brains in their head, make some sort of peace agreement, whether they like us or not. And I don't expect them to like us, because it's just part of their education and DNA. But all I want them to do is to, understand that they won't attack us, and they will live in somewhat of a, peaceful way.
Have you been in contact with any people that you know, friends, relatives, since the treaty?
Truthfully, I have like a sprinkling of friends, and I don't want to go into politics, because I got a very close friend who's very, very left wing, and he's not a big fan of Bibi. So if I say it's great news, he will assume that I'm trying to be political. So I haven't spoken to him. I did speak to an aunt who was also very left-wing leaning, and I was shocked at her comments about, that she didn't say anything political, but she was very much saying that they have to get the hostages and these people are evil. And before, she was one of those who would say, we have to give them land and we have to be nice and all that. And her whole attitude changed. So, I think everyone, let's say 80 to 90% of the people in Israel, whatever side they're leaning, are just happy to have the hostages back. And, the political battle will start in 2026 when the elections happen, and it's going to be, hopefully they can just be nice to each other and learn from this, because I think I'll just say one last thing that I heard. There was a soldier, I don't know if he was a soldier, but his parents were, he was a hostage. He came out with this last group. His parents were religious Zionists, which means they were very right-leaning. And I heard them many times saying that even though their son is a hostage, we should not be going out and doing all these, what they call in Hebrew, hafganot. They come and they, push the government to, the demonstrations, to give up whatever they, give up everything to get the hostages back. And he had a big argument with another parent I saw this on TV. It was very, very hard to watch. And this parent was crying. He was in tears because he didn't want to fight about it, but he was trying to explain his point of view. And his son came out and he said that the thing that emboldened Hamas was that the Israelis that were demonstrating to get the hostages out gave them so much hope that they could keep the hostages. And that this guy, that his parents never went and pushed the government, like he would have been number one to get rid of, because he meant nothing to them, because his parents weren't publicly going out and asking. Now that's hard. I'm not saying it was easy, and I'm just saying that whenever, when in this situation, they loved the fact that the Israelis were fighting with each other. That's what emboldened them to get these hostages. And I'm not judging the people that were demonstrating. What I'm saying is that this was a very psychological thing, and it was very hard. And once again, hopefully we learned our lesson here with these guys, that you got to be always strong, and show them that you're much stronger than them, because that's the only reason why they won't attack you, is because they understand that you're 1,000 times stronger. I think they said it will take over 20 years to rebuild Gaza, and it's like something like $60 to $80 billion.
Yeah, it was huge.
I mean, come on. How stupid are these people to have done this?
I don't know. It's like Trump was saying, it looks like a demolition site now. It's a complete demolition site before and after.
Yeah.
And I don't fault I don't fault Israel for anything you guys did. A lot of people are saying, well, they're too aggressive, they're killing too many people. I'm like, they haven't killed, in comparison, very many people at all. I mean, it's just not compared to any other war that's out there. And I'm sick and tired of this huge double standard. Because if, like I said before, if Mexico would have come up and killed 3,000 people in New Mexico or Texas somewhere and took 1,500 people captive down to Mexico City, the United States would have annihilated them. There would have been no holds barred. It would have been worse than Iraq and Afghanistan.
Off the map.
And if it would have happened to any other nation, if, let's say, the French went across the Bering Sea again and started attacking England like happened so many centuries ago and did the same thing, it'd be all-out war. So there's this huge double standard amongst everybody that literally, like you were saying, wants to tie Israel's hands behind behind your back, because they don't want to treat you guys as your own sovereign nation, that you guys have the absolute right to do whatever is necessary to protect your people. And then there's this huge bash fest on Netanyahu saying that he's not doing anything right. And I'm like, he is not there to appease the world. He's not there to appease the UN. He's not there to be dictated to by every other country out there telling what he can and cannot do. He's got one goal and one goal only, and that's his own people. And nobody is looking at it from his perspective or the people's perspective, because if I was Israeli, I was in my own country, he'd be doing exactly what I wanted him to do, which is kill everybody. What they did on October 7th is not forgivable. What they did to kids, if those were my kids, I'd be just furious. And I'd want just death to everybody. It's the amount of anger, I can't even imagine what would be over there. And so his popularity, I think, comes from the fact that he, like Trump, is Israel first, right? Trump's like America first. He's Israel first. I'm not here to appease the UN. I'm not here to appease the other nations. I'm not going to be dictated to by the rest of the world what I can and cannot do. This is what they did. It's their fault that the civilians are allowing themselves to be slaughtered, because everybody wants to fault the IDF for bombing hospitals and schools where the Hamas was putting the missiles and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, these citizens know that they are there, and they could stand up and say, get this out of here. We don't want this in our schools. We don't want this in our hospitals. But the citizens don't care. Just like that little 13-year-old boy was saying, and she was asking him, was it Hamas hitting you or was it citizens? He's like, it was citizens. And we know for a fact that the vast majority of the people that came across that border and started killing all the Israelis and doing all this torture and everything weren't Hamas soldiers. It was just normal, everyday citizens. They've got scads of cell phone calls where they're calling them and saying, Dad, I just killed 10 Israelis. And the mother's like, oh, Allah Akbar, whatever they want to say over there, just praising everything that they're doing. So I have no remorse for any of that, none. And I'm not even Israeli. I'm not even Jewish. My grandmother was Jewish, but I'm not. But, well, you could call me quarter Jewish, I guess. But I don't have any remorse. This is Uriah Kennedy from God and Country, and I grew up around guns. That's something that was just a normal thing. I knew where my father's guns were, and I knew what gun safety was, even from the smallest point as a child. There is nothing that taught me that more than having my own BB gun while growing up. BB guns provide hours of fun for kids and teenagers as well as for adults. But at the same time, that is teaching you great marksmanship. It is also teaching you gun safety in a better and safer way. There is nothing better as a father than to be able to go with my children and teach them the skills of gun safety, gun accuracy, and be able to do it in a fun and inexpensive manner. I've always had a Crossman growing up. Crossmans provide excellent accuracy and a lot of power for a BB gun. There's a lot of different styles to choose from different types of air rifles and pistols, even to fully automatic BB guns and other types of air guns. You need to go to the link in our description or click on the QR code that's coming up on your screen to be able to go to Crossman and make those BB gun purchases, those air rifle purchases. Again, it's going to supply you hours of fun and enjoyment with you and your kids, as well as you as an adult. And BBs are a lot less expensive than actual ammunition. So go to Crossman by using the link in our description or the QR code that's popping up on the screen and enjoy the accuracy, the quality of construction, and the hours of family fun that you will have with these air rifles and BB guns. Again, the link in the description, the QR code that's popping up on your screen, and then support our channel. Thank you. There's two things I want to mention here real quick, and then Marshall, I want to get your opinion on this. One is during the Biden administration, they literally palleted it up $5 billion or something like that in cash, solid cash, put on pallets, put it on a C-17, flew it over there and dropped it off in Iran's doorstep, which what funded this whole disaster. Wanted to get your opinion on that. And then, there's one other thing. But let's get your opinion on show of strength and how the Biden administration kind of helped this war even start.
Yeah, your point you just made was phenomenal. That, Biden literally gave them pallets and pallets of cash. What led to that incredible tactical mistake was absolute lunacy. It's just beyond incredible. And that was the Biden administration. And I think it started, unfortunately, with the Obama presidency, and Biden just continued the agenda of being passive to Iran and not really stepping up with what needed to be done. And certainly funding Iran led to all these wars. You talked, I have a couple notes I wrote down. First of all, you mentioned about Texas. In 1923, I think I'm quoting the right year, a bunch of Mexicans came up from Mexico when Woodrow Wilson was president and slaughtered Texans. Woodrow Wilson sent down the militia, found everyone responsible, and killed them on the spot. No questions asked. And when Israel does the same thing in a more egregious situation where they're kidnapping and killing 1,200 people, and part of the kidnapping is they were taking dead bodies across the border. I mean, you've got to really be, I don't even know the word for it, to be willing to take a dead body with you as a hostage. And that I think was a really troubling situation. And that ties into what Ingrid said before, that the Jews are demonized and they're taught to hate. And the hatred is so sacred. Golda Meir was asked when she was prime minister, when will there be peace in the Middle East? And she said, when they love their children more than they hate ours.
Well, not to interrupt you, that's a huge point, because I saw a video of, now that the peace deal happened, before the peace deal happened, media was not allowed into Gaza. So the only media getting out of Gaza was whatever Gaza produced, which is what created the vast majority of all this misinformation, false information. There was no media allowed in Gaza. So, but these, I don't even remember, I think it was from England or something like that, went in there, started interviewing this Gazan woman, and she had 7 kids, all of them dead. And she was absolutely proud that all 7 of them were either suicide bombers or people that actually went in and participated in October 7th. She was openly saying that, yeah, my kids participated and they died. And she goes, that's why she literally said, that's why we have kids, is so that they can do this. So the only reason they have kids is to breed suicide soldiers or other types of soldiers. So going right along with the point you were just making.
So I showed in my classes over the years a video, and it's not on YouTube. It was called Jihad for Kids, and it showed like a Mickey Mouse character, and he was dancing with the kids, and a 4-year-old girl, 5-year-old girl, was passionately shrieking I want to march into Jerusalem and I'm going to blow myself up and I'm going to be a suicide warrior. And it was a 7-minute video, and I showed it in class, and the kids were 12 and 13, and they were kind of giggling because they thought it was a joke. And at the end, I said, no, it's not a joke. And they showed a teacher dancing with an assault rifle overhead in front of the classroom. And they were kind of giggling because they thought it was just a total comedic put on.
Yeah, like who thinks like that, right?
Right. And I said, well, how many times do you come down for breakfast and your mother's dancing in your kitchen with an assault rifle over her head? And they're kind of laughing. And so at the end of the video, I said, no, this is real. And I remember one girl specifically, I'm not going to say her name, said like, oh my gosh, this is really sick. Can we watch it again? Now that we understand what this philosophy is, I want to see it so that I understand where this hatred is coming. And that hatred they indoctrinate their children with is sacred. The head of the nuclear program, one of the heads, we talked about, the third string, I don't know which string the guy was, when the head of the Iranian nuclear program was knocked off, he had left a command that he wanted. What do you put on a tombstone? I know our parents are long gone, but my brothers and I battled that every word means something, that every word it immortalizes them in a special way in our love for them. And so the head of the Iranian nuclear program, when Israel knocked him off, he wanted written on his tombstone, here lies the man who sought to annihilate Israel. I mean, that's what your life is? How about he was a good father, he was a good son? Nothing like that. And I think also the precedent for these protests and the precedent for the Hamas attacks came from the Gilad Shalit, the soldier who went AWOL and was kidnapped and redeemed for 1,004 Palestinian terrorists many years ago. And I've been in Israel many times, not the last 2 years, but they had a protest tent for Gilad Shalit's family within a block of Netanyahu's residence in Rehavia, a neighborhood in Jerusalem. And they were playing music and they were cooking and they were living there, and there was a lot of pressure. So that was for one soldier. Here you've got, 251 people kidnapped. You got 20 lives. And at what cost are they redeeming these lives? There was such incredible pressure. And the psychological impact, not only on the hostages themselves, who we know were abused and told your family's against you and the government forgot about you, but the psychological impact on the country with these protests in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv was beyond the norm. And I think that Trump pulled off a deal to get out the 20 living hostages. I'm not downplaying at all the 19 bodies they need to get yet, which they're dragging their feet on. But Trump getting out those 20 hostages was an incredible accomplishment, beyond incredible. And I think deep down, as much as he's not saying it, he knows that Hamas isn't going to disarm. He knows they want to include themselves as part of an army of a new Palestinian state. But Trump was the only one, and one of the State Department officials said for 80 years, the State Department has been pushing a narrative of a two-state solution. It hasn't worked. They've gotten nowhere. And Trump was the first one to come up with this innovative idea, at least to stop the war. And as you mentioned, I think not only it's the money factor of all these countries, but for instance, in Dubai and United Arab Emirates, they have tremendous Israeli tourism and hotels that are kosher and stores that are kosher and restaurants. They realize it's just not smart anymore. Israel is the strongest power in the Middle East. So to hide your head in the sand and say, we don't recognize Israel is ridiculous. It's there to stay. And as you said, like some of the countries, and as someone said, Egypt and Jordan might not have the warmest peace with Israel, but no one's fighting each other across the border. There are no, there might be some smuggling going on. That's in event, but for the most part, the government of Jordan and Israel, although there are a few incidents here and there, but there is a cold to medium, lukewarm peace with Israel, and they're not killing each other on a daily basis. And Hamas, it's so sacred to them, the fighting. And you mentioned the woman with 7 children. Someone told me recently there was a woman who ran for the Hamas parliament, last elections was 17 years ago, on the premise of, I have 10 children. 7 have already martyred. I have 3 more to give. And one other point is that Jerusalem Post had an editorial cartoon years ago of two Arab women pushing their baby carriage, and one says the other, "Oh, they blow up so fast," and
Oh boy.
it's tragic. You know, you ought to laugh, but it's tragic, and there is nothing worse than children being indoctrinated with hatred and wanting to come and kill Jewish people and be violent. There is nothing worse than that level of child abuse. And at some point, you know, the extremism has to end, and we have to say, you know, enough fighting. Let's build a better Middle East. When Israel left Gaza in 2005, there were 2,000 greenhouses. I was talking to a close friend of mine who lives in Hebron, where the Cave of the Patriarchs are, and he said something interesting. I said, how many truckloads, and we talked 3-4 days ago about this, how many truckloads of aid went into Gaza when Israel had 2,000 greenhouses to day to day? He said no truckloads of food. They were independent. But within 24 hours of Israel leaving Gaza, every synagogue was burned to the ground. And that's why Israel cleared out the cemeteries, because they knew what would happen. But also the greenhouses, because they had Jewish connections and Jewish roots, which could have fed all of Gaza, were destroyed. And the water systems, the water pipes were pulled up to make rockets. So at some point, you want to say there's going to be a realization that they're gonna reform. Over the previous holiday last week, you know, we were talking in many places I ate, my friends, will this hold? And I thought it would hold maybe 2 to 4 weeks before Hamas starts bombing. But now they're killing their own people in the streets. And Trump said the people being killed in the streets aren't such good people either. It doesn't bother him, which is a pretty callous attitude. But at some point, there has to be a realization, and Trump has brought in so many nations into this agreement, all these Arab nations that no one thought could be unified, in realizing it's time. We need to get rid of the extremism. It's time. It's time to move. It's time to build forward. And it's time to, you know, whenever I go to Israel, I call her my Israeli mother, and she's very wise. And she said once, you don't want to live with us in peace? Don't live with us in peace, but don't kill our children. So at some point, there has to be some reckoning. And hopefully this will be an opportunity that Israel will indeed be able to come to some agreement. And as we said, Syria is a non-entity, as someone said, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran is weakened. And Iran had an editorial in their paper, which is revolutionary. It said October 7th was a bad idea because it caused the destruction of all these countries that aren't entities anymore. So if you look at the immediate area around Israel, you've got Egypt and Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, which aren't factors anymore. And Iran and the Houthis in Yemen are the only ones left, and they're not going to be for so much longer either.
Well, they've been extremely weakened. But I've said this many times before. I think the sheiks in Saudi Arabia and those are in the United Arab Emirates and Dubai, they're in it more for money now than they are for the Quran or whatever their laws are, because they're getting a little westernized over there, and I'm sure that's causing a lot of the infighting between the different Muslim denominations over there. But the main problem is not necessarily the Muslim religion itself, but those within that religion that practice Sharia law explicitly. Because Sharia law states, and we've stated this many times, that you either convert, you become a slave and pay a tax, or you die. Those are your options. And that's what's going to dictate whether this thing lasts a while or not. Because Saudi Arabia and these others are going to be in it for the money. They want the economic powerhouses that they want to build their countries into. They want to have the same economic status that China has, the United States has. And that's what they're seeing themselves as. We got the oil, we got the money, we need to become these worldwide powerhouses. So they're putting less priority to Sharia law and more priority to the economic benefits of this.
Whether they believe it or not,
helping.
as long as it doesn't manifest, it's great.
Yeah, but the problem is going to come now where there's going to be leadership, and we all know it's going to happen. There's going to be leadership, whether it's leadership here in the United States, somebody that's currently residing in Europe somewhere, or down in Africa somewhere, that's going to say, no, money doesn't matter. Sharia law is more important. Sharia law states that the world, the entire planet, has to convert or die, starting with Israel, because you're the only non-Muslim religion that's over there, which is why Pakistan and India were fighting, because they don't even want Hinduism or Buddhism to exist either. That's what it's going to boil down to. I'm of the belief that Hamas will disarm because they're going to get pressure from Saudis, from the Jordanians, from the Egyptians, because they have this money all invested into this. But there's going to be a charismatic leader that's going to come up a year from now, 2 years from now, probably when Trump is not in office. I don't see anybody fighting back until there's a weak U.S. president, because I think they're literally going to be afraid of Trump. So I think we're going to have peace until at least 2028. We'll see who gets elected at that point and see if they maintain the same strength. I mean, if J.D. Vance gets elected, I think we're going to be good for another 4 years. And if he goes 8, great, and we can have a decade of peace here. But someone's going to come up. There's going to be a Muslim leader that's going to say that Sharia law is by far more important than anything else. It's going to be river to the sea all over again. They have to get rid of the religion itself, because everybody has to convert. That's kind of the way I see it myself. I mean, Selwyn, what do you see?
I think you make a good point, and I think the challenge will be whether there's whether they can embolden. I don't want to say the more moderates, because I don't know what a moderate Muslim leader is. I mean, maybe those guys in the Emirates that welcome Jews, and they even have synagogues there, and people live there. Jews live there. So maybe that's like a moderate leader, where you do have very religious Muslims living with, let's say, more westernized, and they sort of live harmoniously because money runs the show there. So if that can be, if they can at least make sure that the radicals are weakened to the point where they can't cause so much trouble, then there's that's really what we all pray for, because then there could be a shot at world peace, with these people. But that's like what the order of the day is. There needs to be like the moderates, so-called moderates, that aren't driven by killing, have to overcome and be stronger, much stronger than the radicals. That's just like a simple, like what you're saying. I think it's totally what you, and if they can embolden and be brave and overcome that, then there's a great shot that this could all work out.
Well, I think if they actually do disarm Hamas, then the moderates within Gaza could actually come up, because right now, if you're a moderate, if you're at all sympathetic to anything but strict Sharia law, like Marshall said, they're the ones getting taken out in the streets and shot in the back of the head. So you have to give the moderates strength and power, and obviously they have the strength and power over in Saudi United Arab Emirates, because the moderates are the ones that own all the oil fields and are generating all the cash. But in smaller areas like Gaza, the moderates don't have that kind of monetary power. And so it's power there is who has the most guns. That's really what it boils down to. Biggest fear I have right now is not necessarily what's happening over the Middle East right now, but it's the spread of Sharia law throughout the world. And it's the homegrown Sharia law that I think is going to be even more dangerous. You see right now that England is accepting Sharia law in hordes. There's entire communities that the police and regular people can't even go walk into in England now.
And they're afraid to.
Yeah, I went over last week with, we had Caroline Phippen on, and we went over the rape rates throughout France, Germany, Poland, and England. And In England, the rape rates went from 8,000 a year to over 68,000 just from the illegal immigration of Muslim religions. And then we look what's happening here in the United States. We've showed videos of these Muslim synagogues in Pennsylvania doing what you guys have just said, where they're literally teaching their kids to be martyrs, and they've got the AK-47s and all that kind of stuff, and they're chanting death to the infidels in schools in Pennsylvania. We see what's going on with Mamdani in New York and how anti-Semitic he is, and he won't even acknowledge Israel at all and says, well, yeah, Hamas have to have a peace deal. We look at what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, where the mayor, the city council, everybody's Muslim now, and they're saying, well, Christians aren't welcome here anymore. And they're literally changing the city streets into the names of genocide leaders in the past. I mean, Marshall, what do you think about the homegrown threat?
I think the homegrown is a big danger, and I think we've kind of hidden it. In England, you know, the police have been for years afraid to do anything when the streets are filled with Muslim prayer, blocking the roads. You know, and I think public prayer isn't allowed in England. I think we've kind of hidden behind and closed our eyes to this, and it's a danger. And I don't think the danger, you know, I think the danger is with the extremists. I mentioned in our previous podcast, I deal with a lot of Muslim customers in the course of my weeks, and they're fine people, but I think it's the extremism that's the danger. And I don't know, you know, the cat's out of the bag. I'm not sure how to deal with it right now. You know, the fight isn't with Islam, it's with the extremist Islam. So I'm not sure how to deal with it. I know Israel's also facing a huge problem now that we haven't talked about yet of the 2,000 people who were released and 250 murderers. So this friend of mine from Hebron says in his vicinity, there are 19 released murderers who he has to deal with. And I'm not sure the way to accurately and effectively battle it. I know that the different secret agencies in Israel, the Mossad, etc., are going to be addressing and watching these guys very, very, very carefully. But in terms
I'm sure that most of those are getting released back into Gaza, and the very Gazan civilians are now have all these criminals on the streets that are...
Right. Some into Gaza, some into the city of Ramallah, some into the Hebron area. And I'm not sure what the answer is for Europe and France and Sweden, where also, you know, it's a very liberal country. And it's a danger. Now, the $1 million question is how do we handle that as they grow to be more extreme? You know, the riots that existed that happened in Amsterdam after the soccer match there a few months ago. How do we hold the line on that? And that I don't know the answer. But as you said, there seems to be some innate anti-Semitism that is so powerful and present. And the hatred they put in their children is so powerful. So I was listening to Lindsey Graham a couple months ago, and he said, post-World War II, the Allies stayed in Europe for over 2 years because they wanted to make sure that the schools had rewritten the textbooks to wipe out the hatred of the Allies and the hatred of the U.S. And maybe Israel needs to do that to make sure. And the UN is certainly no innocent little lamb here, you know, by sanctioning the textbooks which demonize Israel. So I think Israel controlling 53% of Gaza, they need to rewrite the textbooks. They need to rewrite the schools. And the narrative has been so slanted against Israel. I read today that like 13,000 students are graduating, I think the number was, and, you know, and they're well fed and they have, you know, textbooks and laptops. So how is it in a genocide that 13,000 people all of a sudden graduate with diplomas and honors? So the narrative in Gaza needs to be rewritten. And I think Israel needs to stay there with whatever troops from Indonesia or whatever Arab countries until the narrative of hatred stops.
I'd have to completely agree with you. I'd have to completely agree with you. And it's going to be really, really tough to change that because you're changing entire mentality. Because like you're saying, the evil is not necessarily the Muslim religion. It's the strict practice of Sharia law. That's what it is. It's anybody that believes that you convert, you become a slave, or you die. Anybody that has that strict mentality that's what the Quran teaches, which it does teach that, but most people are moderate and just choose not to adhere to those specific verses within the Quran.
I think most people want to raise their children and not have their children fighting day to day and hating day to day. I mean, the culture that's in Hamas is they spend their days planning to kill and hate. And you want, I don't know, you and I, we want more for our families, a lot more, and positive things.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing that's happened with the oppression of women too. I mean, the hijab is spreading when it wasn't as big as it was even 10, 20 years ago. Now,
the new cultural dress of each of these countries has changed.
It's way changed. The culture's completely changed over there. Well, I want to show some of the good news videos, and then let's discuss the happy stuff.
Good.
Well, we'll start with semi-happy, but not completely happy. Then we'll get to the happy stuff. This one doesn't have any sound, but so we'll talk through it. There's a number of caskets, number of the dead arriving to Israel now, which was part of the peace deal. And, I mean, we're all glad that they're going to have a sense of closure. And they're going to have a sense of closure there. It's still incredibly tough just to get dead bodies back, right? Incredibly tough just to get
they're saying that the news said in the last day or so that Turkey had wanted to bring in heavy equipment, and Israel's not allowing it until all the hostages the dead hostages are released. But they say they're buried deep under. Israel's saying that they know exactly where all these hostages are, which I think makes much more sense. But I just think in the coming weeks, it's going to come to a battle to get these hostages out. They're going to claim they don't have the digging equipment to get it. But I think at some point soon, and Trump has said it's going to be a very violent ending, I would think within a month, Israel's going to have to go in and finish what was started.
Sadly, I'm not doubting that at all. And I'm sure at this point, a lot of the Gazans themselves are saying, we want this over as well, get Hamas out of here, because they were probably supporting Hamas in the beginning. I mean, they voted them in the beginning.
They voted them in, plus Israel offered $500,000 for any information leading to a live hostage, and not one Gazan turned in. And I'm sure there probably were Gazans, many of whom wanted to do it, but they knew that they were risking their lives. And they said that we'll whisk out of the country, and Israel's able to do that. They would have been risking their lives big time to do that. So no one turned into a hostage.
Well, it's even more prevalent now that they've taken 52 people out in the streets and shot them in the back of the head. So fear, the rule by fear is very, very prevalent. So the only way they're going to get normal Gazan citizens to actually start helping is they're going to have to continue to get rid of Hamas. And I think that's going to be the fight, like you're saying, over the next month, is literally going in there and forcing Hamas out. Because part of the agreement is Hamas can't be in leadership, and the current Palestinian Authority can't be in leadership either. It's got to be
until they clean up their act, which isn't going to happen.
It's got to be completely.
When you got the head, Abbas is 87 years old. His thesis was on Holocaust denial. He's not going to change his spots at 87 years old. That's not the leadership you're looking for from the Palestinian Authority. Hopefully, there'll be a leadership that can indeed realize that Israel's not going away.
One of the things I learned growing up as a kid, and particularly in Scouts, was to be prepared. and particularly when it comes to my feet. You do not want to be out in a situation where your feet are incredibly uncomfortable and makes you absolutely miserable, makes the rest of the day absolutely miserable. So you have to go out there in the right equipment, whether that's hiking in the mountains, whether that's fishing on the stream, it's working out in your garden or out in the yard, or it's going out on the town or to the nearest rodeo in a nice pair of boots. You have to go out prepared so you look good, feel good, and most importantly, it is comfortable. Because again, there's nothing like being miserable walking around all day long. We want to introduce you to 3 different companies that are supporting this channel. We have Durango Boots, which provides the best Western wear and boots that money can buy. So you'll have the look, the feel that you want. There's also Rocky Boots for that great mountain wear, that hiking wear, and just getting out into nature and being prepared for what you're confronting. And then there's Mucky Boots or Muck Boots, which will provide the perfect waterproofing that you need for fishing, hunting, and again, getting out in the yard and working in the mud. These are great companies that supply a great pair of boots for you for any need, for any occasion. So again, go to the link in our description or click on the QR code that's coming up on your screen for any of these great sites, whether it's Western wear, whether it's the outdoor wear and getting up into the hills and the mountains, or whether it's muck wear that you need to be able to work around the garden or go fishing or hunting and not walk around and with wet feet. These are great products at great prices that will keep you perfectly comfortable all day at the same time that you're looking good. So trust these products, whether it's Durango, whether it's Muck Boots, or whether it's Rocky Mountain Boots or Rocky Boots, and go to those sites using the link in our description or QR code that's popping up on your screen. Again, the link in the description or QR code that's popping up on your screen, and support our channel. Well, let's get to the good news then.
They
Oh, this is the father who had the stroke in the car accident. He got out of his wheelchair. And he said that was his wish, to stand and hug his sack. You don't go the chance at first to comfort you to the sadness and things for the
Yeah, that's the father that had the stroke, and he says if his son gets released, I'm going to learn how to walk and learn how to talk again before my son gets released.
How inspirational.
Very inspirational.
I really enjoyed hearing how they took the hospital rooms and they brought in tables and couches so that the families would just have more of a homey atmosphere to be and live and stay with their families there in the rooms.
The psychological impact on the families is immeasurable.
Yes.
Absolutely immeasurable. This is one where they were watching news media and watching their family member get released. They hadn't even met him yet. They were just seeing him getting out of the vans, and they were getting excited. So and I watched a video that paralleled that one. I didn't have it, but it showed the TV because they have a TV screen up in that room that they're all looking at, and they show 2 of the Red Cross vans pull up to some parking lot. It's got big old dirt pile in the background, so it wasn't anywhere. And then the sliding doors open up and people are starting to get out, and they know that their relative's in there, so they start screaming, and then they really start screaming louder when he actually gets out of the van. And and stuff like that. Just the amount of emotion that goes out for all the survivors, those 20 hostages get released and their reunions with the families. I watched almost all of them. These are just a few that I pulled up because we didn't want to fill the whole thing with that. But so, I mean, you've got a little bit of heartache with just caskets and bodies arriving with the 9 that have arrived. But then you've got just a tremendous outpouring of joy for those hostages that have come across alive. And it came at a very, very brutal cost with everybody that's died, because over 1,000 died. We saw the stories of just 40 girls getting tied to trees and getting raped and killed and beheaded in that forest by that one guy. And then everything that happened in those first homes where just people were shot and killed, and the mix of emotions for people just getting the dead back versus those who are coming back alive. Can't imagine the amount of PTSD that's going to be going on, the amount of just...
We had something interesting in synagogue services in the Jewish holiday, which just passed. We have a prayer service we call in Hebrew Yizkor, which means to remember. And so various synagogues across the globe have added a prayer to remember those who were killed in the October 7th and the soldiers killed subsequently in Gaza, etc. And someone had an idea that roughly the 1,200 killed on October 7th and 800 killed subsequently, to have cards of 10 names, 200 cards in our synagogue, and I'm sure other synagogues did this globally. And each person during this service where you remember parents and loved ones have died was going to read off silently 10 names. We paused, and I was leading the service. We paused, and each person read 10 names, quietly, and we gave them time to read it. And on my card, which was random, which is not so random, God's watching over us all the time, and I saw the name of someone whose father is a diplomat who I know, without mentioning a name, and his mother I went to high school with. And he was 32 years old with a large family, and he was killed in battle. And when you see the personal element, and this is someone I'm not in touch with the families at all, and I didn't know the person was killed, but there's a very emotional, high level of feelings, and the PTSD is going to be off the charts. And it's not going to take a day to heal, and it's not going to take a month to heal. And I want to draw a parallel to something the former chief rabbi of London, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, who was a brilliant scholar, said something very interesting when he spoke in Chicago many years ago. And he said when our forefather Abraham buried his beloved wife Sarah, the first thing he did was sit the 7-day mourning period, we call it Shiva, and then he sent his servant Eliezer to find a wife for Isaac. He went to build the next generation. And the Jews are resilient. So whatever happened, the 2,000 sacrifices that we had to make, the goal is to build the next generation, and to build a generation of positive, fine young people and who grow into adults that prosper and bring greatness to the world, and bring goodness to the world, and are peaceful. And that's the hope, that we can hopefully grasp this unique opportunity that Trump has been able to get. And when I first heard of the agreement, I'm thinking, okay, the 20 live hostages and the dead hostages for 250 plus 1,700 civilians who are arrested, not so civilian, but who are arrested in Gaza. That's the deal we have to make to get out these 20 hostages. The next part's disarming. That's going to be the impossible part. And only time will tell, and hopefully we can indeed disarm them without too much human life sacrifice, and that a new reality is going to come to the Middle East. I mean, that's the ultimate hope. The hope is that, Jews have prayed 3 times daily for peace in Jerusalem, for peace in the world, and it's a highlight of our prayers to pray for peace. We don't want our sons to have to go to the army. We don't want our families. In Israel, it's mandatory 18 to 21 unless you're a certain type of student. we want, imagine that the world's good that could come out of thousands of young people not having to do army service. Could one of those guys cure cancer? Could one of those guys be a world leader or whatever in technology and help shape the world as it grows? And that's the hope, that ultimately we can have peace in the Middle East and true peace.
What a beautiful way for you to honor and remember those people, and what a beautiful
Thank you.
little
It was such
tender
a moving
mercy
idea.
from God, for sure.
It was
for you
such
to
a
get that
moving,
name.
and the part of the prayer that we paused was, that men, women, and babies were killed, and it was, you felt, and there were about, it's a small group, about 40 maybe, but you could feel it was like, wow, this is something special. And the ultimate goal is to, like Egypt and Jordan, you don't have to be the warmest peace in the world, but just stop fighting. But Hamas, it's going to be an interesting ride. And I think it's good that, as you said before, under Kamala Harris, it wouldn't have gone so smoothly.
No.
And it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened at all.
Trump made a statement afterwards that he's left that has not been lost on me, where he left the opening, and I'm paraphrasing here, but if there's any violence in Gaza by Hamas, that we will, not we, but they will come in and we have the open right to come annihilate
Right.
them.
And he said it's going to be violent.
Yep.
One thing about Trump, he doesn't pull punches.
Nope.
He says what he thinks. And just,
And he follows through with what he says. He doesn't give empty promises.
Look, as we said before, the narrative of the two-state solution, which neither side will ever accept, has been going for 80 years. And it's time. And Trump had the guts to do it. He seized the opportunity. And he said it didn't happen out of a vacuum. He's been cultivating these Arab countries. And Uriah, as you said so brilliantly, financially, he's been cultivating these countries. And if that's what it takes to bring peace to the Middle East, United Arab Emirates realizes they're making millions of dollars a year on Israeli tourism. It's a lot smarter than fighting and killing each other. And if that's what it takes, if financial is the carrot, good, go for it.
Well, I think they're seeing what Trump is doing to Russia. I mean, Russia's putting some pretty steep sanctions on Russia, and he's negotiating with India, so India will completely stop buying oil from him.
Right.
He's pushing hard to all NATO countries to stop buying oil from Russia. And they're kind of seeing what Trump can do financially, because the vast majority of the peace he's done through tariffs. I mean, the tariffs that he put on India, the tariffs he put on Pakistan to get them to have peace. He says the only reason I put tariffs on them is because they kept fighting. He says, I'm going to keep increasing the tariffs until you guys stop fighting.
Yeah.
And
he's a nut,
did so.
but he's our nut.
Yeah, it's a massive show of strength, And so people believe him when they say that he's going to do something, and that is the peace through strength. And nobody in the Democrats even understand that. All they understand is, let's negotiate, let's come to a common understanding, let's buy them off, let's appease them. And appeasement's never, ever going to work. And it hasn't worked, like you said, in 80 years. It's never worked.
Look what Chamberlain gave Czechoslovakia to the Nazis. The Nazis said, that's all the land we need. How long did that last for? A year. Less than a year until the war opened. What's interesting also, and I was discussing this with my friend in Israel, it's interesting that Israel stood strong. They wanted the Sinwar brothers' bodies back. They wanted Marwan Barghouti, who's not only a terrorist, but an organizer. They wanted him back. And this is the first time that in all these negotiations for prisoner releases, and whatever, that Israel has said no. There are certain levels we won't go. And I credit Netanyahu. He's not had an easy job. He's not well liked in many circles. But bottom line, he had the guts to stand up and say no.
Well, I think Trump is not liked in many, many circles, so I don't see a problem with it. I mean, if you look at U.S. presidents, I mean, best approval ratings for U.S. president, which would be a phenomenal approval rating, is what, 54, 55%? No, he's got 54, 55%. They're saying that excellent approval ratings are just above half, right? Because it's very, very partisan.
Yeah.
And so they try to say that Netanyahu doesn't have the popularity. Look, he's only got like a 59 or 60% approval rating. I'm like, he's got what? That's better than any one of our presidents. And they're trying to downplay it. I'm like, he'd be scoring huge in the United States if he had that approval rating over here. So everybody's really trying to paint a bad picture of his approval rating over there. I'm like, looks to me like he's got a better approval rating than Trump or Reagan or
that's a great point. I didn't think about it. Yeah.
Anybody else. I mean,
Dad can't please all his kids.
No, you're never going to please anybody. He shouldn't be out there trying to appease any other countries, but he's got a polls over there. And I think a lot of the polls within Israel themselves are quite skewed because I think outside nations are influencing those polls.
For sure.
I think that he's got a lot more popularity than people realize within the own boundaries of Israel, which is why he keeps getting elected in there. I really don't think he's got the problems everybody says he does, because I think the media is very, very skewed once it gets over to the United States.
All the media in Israel is very left.
They really badmouth him over here, but I think that's a specific narrative. I don't think it's as bad as they say it is.
The Chicago Tribune, if you read between the lines, there are constant jabs. Not even jabs at Trump, like, clear allusions that, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's bad, he's terrible, he's a crazy man. And the same connection, the same kind of connotations to Israel. And if you look at the writers, you see the writers are coming mostly from Arabic countries. So I understand where it's coming from. But it's still frustrating. It would be nice to read a middle-of-the-road thing. But Netanyahu has stood up, and the friendship of him and Trump has been tremendous.
Well, I watched the arrival. So I was up, I think it was Sunday night, and the news pinged my phone. I went over this and actually played it in the video I just put out on Monday. But my phone pinged and opened up the news. I see Air Force One arriving in Israel and seeing it descend into Tel Aviv. Yeah. And then the president of Israel and the Prime Minister Netanyahu were both there to greet him. And everybody's saying, the media I was watching, they were saying, well, the relationship between Netanyahu and the president hasn't always been perfect. I'm like, how is that not perfect? I mean, obviously it's not perfect, but I don't see the relationship between Netanyahu and the president being bitter or having them clashing. No. I think that's just another narrative.
Air Force One flew down low over an area that had, Trump welcomed Israel with American flag.
Well, I saw that on the beach. I mean, I showed that whole picture of the beach. That was great.
Yeah, it was on the beach, right?
What do you think the relationship's like between the president and Netanyahu of Israel?
Something, I'm sure there are points they don't agree on. But you know what? Overall, I think as Americans, we realize Israel's our only reliable ally in the Middle East. And I think there's a lot of respect. Behind the scenes, I think there's a lot of respect. And I think a lot of times that they kind of have to agree, like, okay, we're going to say this publicly, but here's where we're holding privately, and we're in sync privately.
Yeah. What is his name again? I forget his name. What is the president?
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Not Netanyahu, not the prime minister, but the president over there of Israel.
Oh, the president is more of a figurehead. And his name is Isaac Herzog, I think.
Herzog? Herzog, yeah.
His father was the first chief, I think his father was the first chief rabbi of Israel. But he was also there. If you notice, he was in the left.
That's what I was talking about. So what do you think the relationship's like between Herzog and Netanyahu? Because that's what I'm hearing on the media.
I think it's a little bit, especially it's a ceremonial job, but I think it's a little adversarial. But who can't respect Netanyahu for getting out the 20 hostages with Trump? How do you not show tremendous appreciation for that?
Can't imagine them not having some kind of an accord over there. It can't be that bitter, but right. I'm seeing a lot of media that's saying that the relationship between Netzach and Netanyahu is pretty bitter.
Yeah, what's interesting also? You don't hear from the squad or Bernie Sanders. Hamas is killing, 50 plus we're up to? And where is the genocide claims now that Israel's not, quote unquote, killing anyone or murdering anyone or genocide, committing genocide? Where are these people now? Where's the squad yelling to Hamas, stop killing your own people?
Yeah.
There's
I saw that
deafening
two media posts today from somebody on Instagram or something like that that are making fun of both Elon Omar and the other parts of the squad of Ocasio-Cortez, because they're all saying, we need a ceasefire right now. We got to have a ceasefire. And there's this whole contingent in Hollywood with Ruffalo and a few others that were saying the same thing. We need a ceasefire now. And now we have a ceasefire, and it's crickets from all of them.
Yeah, it's a funny world. It's a funny political world. But, because Trump is a Republican, obviously, and they're Democrats, so they will never acquiesce that Trump did anything good.
Having those hostages released after 2 years, I mean, I know how families celebrate here in our environment when a kid gets home from the mission after 2 years, or I've seen countless numbers of people get home from the military. I mean, my kids get home from the military a few times when my son was in Korea for a little while, and my daughter was just in tears when he came home the first time, and I surprised her with it because we were actually up camping, and I secretly went off to the airport, picked him up, and took him up there, and nobody told her he was coming until he was getting out of my car. My daughter started tearing up and all that, and he was gone for just over a year. I wanted to actually get the Ingrid's opinion here, female opinion.
Sounds good.
So like I was saying, we have missionaries that come home after 2 years. We got people coming home from the military. And women are more sentimental than guys, honestly. Yeah. So, and we saw that here. So from the woman's perspective, if you had a child in hostage situation for 2 years, you had no idea if he was going to come back alive or not, and all of a sudden you see him as a mother.
I can't imagine. Definitely, the joy. But that's why I thought it was really a lot of foresight to make those hospital rooms somewhere where the family could have a homey environment for the reunion and be able to be together. Because I know that even here, a lot of times you have hostages or kidnapped victims get home, but you don't get to be with them. They've got interviews to do, and there's got to be a dissemination of information.
Everybody wants to debrief them, and the media wants to get to them.
Yeah, and it kind of interrupts that. So I thought that was genius that they'd have that kind of environment so that the families can be together, but they can still take care of them with whatever health things that they need, and I imagine the psychological too. But yeah, I've bawled watching them.
Yeah, as a father, everybody just bursting in tears because you never thought you'd see your kid ever again, and all of a sudden now they're there. But like we're saying, the PTSD has got to be huge. I mean, imagine trying to help that 13-year-old boy that said he saw worse atrocities than that in person than he saw in the videos that they were forcing him to watch. I mean, just what he saw and
the psychological torture that they put them through, or telling them their families don't care about them, or the state of Israel has forgotten them, is horrible.
Yeah, how do you reprogram that out of somebody? I don't know.
How do you live a normal life? Because that PTSD is going to follow you into a marriage. It's going to follow you into your future kids. I see what happens with our veterans here. We have 19, 20 veteran suicides a day here in the United States, and from what they saw in war, the impact of that over there has just got to be massive because they saw worse things than most
I know
of our soldiers.
It can be done because you have some of these victims of long-term abductions here in the U.S. They write books later when they come back, and the girl that was kept in a box under the bed for how many years,
I saw it. Yeah.
And how she's moved on. And often the answer is they serve other people. They take care and they're able to serve and love other people. But I know God can work miracles to help in those situations.
Well, it's all going to be God from there on. It's all going to be God. From there, I don't see anything else happening. Well, I have a final video I want to show here. It kind of shows currently the anti-Semitism, what's going on here, and it's kind of surprising.
Jewish schools here in Munich, Germany, must release their students at different time periods throughout the day for their safety. And when they release these students to walk home from school or to get on the bus, the tram, what have you, they are accompanied by armed police officers so they don't get attacked by people who don't like the Jewish community here in Germany in 2025. That's unbelievable. Germany's been through one hell of a ride, but you know, in today's world, for these students to still have to be released from school at different time periods so that nobody knows when exactly they're being released, alongside being accompanied with armed police officers, is crazy and sad. When I heard that on the tour, 2.5-hour tour of the history of Munich and Hitler, of course, and World War II, broke my heart for these students. My goodness gracious, guys.
In Germany, of all places.
In Germany, of all, what?
Yeah.
Response to that, Marshall?
Well, you know, I just was thinking back to something Yitzhak Shamir, Prime Minister, I think in the 80s, said. He said, we must bring peace to our children. And it's not going to be an easy battle. And I don't know, wow, that in Germany, of all places. I know I've traveled to Poland 4 times and to Lithuania once to trace roots. And I don't go to Germany. We don't. I know Rabbi Lau, a child survivor who was former chief rabbi of Israel, would speak in Germany but wouldn't stay overnight in Germany. And it's a scary thought. And to think that they have to stagger the hours, wow. I'm trying to take that in, and that's a really heavy duty. That's something.
I think it's absolutely scary that there's that level of anti-Semitism already throughout Europe. I mean, we saw it in the UN. We saw when Netanyahu got up to speak in the UN a couple of weeks ago that everybody in the UN just got up and left.
Yeah, like 60 nations left.
Yeah, just 60 nations.
Yeah.
He was speaking to an empty auditorium, just left. That's absolutely pervasive throughout the world, and we're seeing a lot of it in our universities. We're seeing a lot of it amongst our youths.
There was a ridiculous Tribune editorial last week that said that Trump is using the anti-Semitism card to control the universities. Like, please, what ridiculous. Come on, he's using the anti-Semitism. I met recently at the Holocaust Museum. They had a speaker, and I quoted him earlier, a survivor, the one who said it's worse than pre-war Germany. And 2 of the guys there to hear him speak were the guys that were knifed at DePaul in the protests. And one of them showed me his hand at DePaul University, a local Chicago university, maybe 5 miles from home. And he showed me his hand, which still had a huge welt from surgery from being knifed by these crazies in the protests. And I think we have to start educating the schools, from like the Chicago public schools had teachers who were teaching, the wrong stuff and anti-Semitism. And our mayor, who's got a 6% approval rating, and it's not without reason, basically supported it. I think it has to start with education. And one of the first days of the protests, Fox reporter interviewed a young woman who was yelling from the river to the sea. The river to sea means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea to wipe out every Jew. And he said, what river and what sea? She goes, leave me alone, in a very aggressive way. He said, no. If you're yelling for the river to the sea, you need to know what river, what sea, what are you talking about? She goes, something I don't know. And I need to sit down and figure it out. We need to do a much better education of these college students. I mean, imagine you're a conservative set of parents. You send your kid off to go to college, and they come back, this bleeding heart liberal who's spouting just nonsense and lies. Jews are, there's the Holocaust Museum here where I run tours is now moved to downtown for a year. They're rebuilding, but they had a giant poster that there were tens of thousands of people with signs of when Jewish blood spurts from the knife, all is better, and the Jews are our misfortune. And one of my students asked, second day of my class this term, of how is that different? How is the free Jews are protesting and maybe they're just protesting in college campuses, isn't that right? And there's a difference because it was government policy then. But our government policy needs to be strong enough that the teachers on college campuses who are teaching hate and anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism, not just anti-Semitism, just any democratic values, we need to be monitoring them. I think Trump was right in limiting funding. And I think we need to revamp our educational system to reflect positive values.
This just highlights the hypocrisy that exists in the whole DEI movement, because it's DEI inclusion of who? Everybody but who you hate?
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of this now where it's not just anti-Semitism, but there's a huge fat on anti-Christian and just pure anti-conservatism.
And Charlie Kirk sensed that. It was
Charlie
the
Kirk sensed that. And we've had
it was
so
the
many
anti-brains movement. There were just no brain. The people, and a lot of times when I'm working at home and I'll have Charlie Kirk videos on a loop, different ones of it, and people come up with the most incredible, valueless statements that are just like where were these people raised? What planet were they raised on that they think like that? And it's scary. It's here. One of them came up, he talked about definition of a woman. One of them was talking about abortion, how abortion is just, killing a bunch of cells. And it's not. It's a person. And some of the one guy got up and asked Charlie Kirk to define a woman. They said, I want to hear your definition. This is a woman is someone who wakes up in the morning and says they're a woman. So he said, if a banana says it's an orange, is it an orange? So I think we have to re-educate the college system and the value system. And that's not an easy battle, but it's one worth fighting.
Agreed.
Well, yeah, completely agreed on that one. But this is Uriah Kennedy from God and Country, and I've been fishing since I was a little kid. My father used to take me out there and teach me how to tie the knots to get my lure on the end of that line, and then cast it into the stream or in the local lake that we were fishing at. There are very few things in this world that are more relaxing and more fun than getting out on the water and pulling in a big fish. In order to have that type of success that you want, to be able to get out there with your kids and be able to have them have that success, or not get skunked yourself, you have to have the best equipment. We all have known and trusted Rapala from the time we were little kids. Rapala has the best lures and the best equipment that you could possibly buy. Trust Rapala in all these needs and go to Rapala by using the link that is on our description, or QR code that's going to be popping up on your screen. Again, you must use the link in our description or the QR code that's popping up on your screen. Trust Rapala for these fishing needs. Again, any type of lures, tools, knives, clothing, and apparel that you will need, you can go to Rapala and get those needs taken care of. Enjoy the water and enjoy being out there with your kids and be successful at the same time, because there's nothing like getting skunked, but there's nothing more joyous than pulling in that big fish. So trust Rapala for those fishing needs and go to Rapala right now using the link in the description, the QR code that's popping up on your screen, and thank you for supporting our channel. A lot of this is just stemming from just the evil rhetoric that's just coming from the left. I mean, the Charlie Kirk assassination, the Trump assassination, everything is happening with ICE agents now. That amount of evil rhetoric is just getting more and more pervasive from the left because they're losing more and more power. We've covered this many times. The more power they lose, the more desperate they become, the more evil, the more violent the rhetoric, which essentially is just giving permission to those normal citizens on the left to create this violence and openly support terrorism, to openly support Sharia law in its worst form, to openly have people killed in the streets. There was, I don't know if it was Booker or who it was, I think it was, but I got the article here that I didn't download, but he openly came out and said that anybody that is brown or black, and he literally said that anybody that's brown skin or black skin, you guys need to go get guns and have guns on you when ICE agents try to pick you up. He said, isn't that the purpose of the Second Amendment? So now you got this complete leftist that's normally way anti-gun violence, anti-Second Amendment rights, and usually are always stating that gun rights are only for hunting or target shooting, right, or not for tyranny from the government, which is what the right always says is the whole purpose of the Second Amendment is for fight against tyranny.
Do we just find common ground with them?
Openly promoting that illegal aliens go and get guns and start shooting ICE agents. Literally openly just said that.
Illinois, which is in a terrible financial strait, along with Chicago, is spending over $1 billion on illegal immigration. And we want to. And what's the government shutdown about? A lot of it is about, do we want to pay medical expenses for illegal immigrants?
Well, that's the complete purpose of the government shutdown. Is they've taken all this money out of USAID, all of this money out of Medicaid programs, and all this stuff where most of that money went to foreign programs that they just made up out of the top of their heads, and some of that money went to foreign program, but the vast majority of that money gets filtered back, gets money laundered back into Democrat coffers, and then that's how they got all their programs to work here in the United States, because they'd have their deep state employees that Trump's trying to fire right now just filter some money to those bank accounts. Hey, I need this program to go forward anyway, even though there's no legislation, there's no precedent for this, there's no executive order. I need the program done anyway. And then you have all these deep state employees that they'll do whatever they're told to do because they don't like the right. And that's why you have all these foreign programs of a gay pride parade in Zimbabwe or something like that. Or, or something like that they're promoting. It's not really these programs. They'll put a little money towards that, but we all know it's just money laundered right back to their own coffers. And that's how it's always been.
Yeah, it's time for things to change.
Well, hopefully Trump can change a lot of this without dying, without someone trying to shoot him. This is like Charlie Kirk, but he's doing awesome. And then we'll see what happens in 2028. I absolutely commend him, and I did in this past video, on what he was able to pull together, because I fully believe that was a little bit of everything that got this peace deal to come together. I think the vast majority was the financial part of it, the financial aspect where he got all these other countries to come together because of the finances.
And he did
top
great.
That up with Israeli strength in killing first string, second string, 60,000 plus people, plus the Iranian bombings, and voila, you've got peace.
Precision bombings.
And notice how many people badmouth that. I mean, even people, Republicans. I mean, you have good, staunch people that I know of, like...
Marjorie Taylor?
Marjorie Taylor Greene was coming out. And I love Marjorie Taylor Greene. I love how she's doing. But she was coming out, like, way anti-Iran bombings. Yeah. Way anti-Iran bombings. You had a lot of these others are coming out way anti-Iran bombings. Tucker Carlson is bad-mouthing more than any of the others, and he's usually pretty right, but he's kind of going ski-wampus, too. And but you have a lot of these people just way concerned about the bombings, and look what it's brought. People just don't understand that Muslim mindset. They think that you can just negotiate, and you can't. They just don't understand that. Just like they don't have a sense of concern for life. I mean, they don't even care about themselves dying or their kids dying. Where are they going to have love and compassion for anybody else if they don't even have compassion for their own family? They'll send their own kids out there to die, and they don't care.
That's a level that I think is just. I remember years ago they had a video of a woman waking up in the middle of the night, kissing her children goodbye, and saying, "I have to do this. I have to blow myself up." You know, I said in class this past week, I said, could you imagine on a Jewish level where we care so much for our kids, saying, to your Jewish kid, here, go to school. I packed a bomb in your lunch, and when you blow yourself up and I read about you on the news, I'll be so proud of you. And that's the danger, and Israel and the world has to change the educational narrative to be a positive one, and that's going to be
the problem, because I don't know how you change that narrative over there, because there's
I don't know.
When it becomes religious like that, it becomes pretty embedded. I mean, it's not a political narrative; it's a religious narrative, which is a deeper narrative.
And that's hard to battle. That's really hard to battle.
Well, any final comments?
No.
So let's just hope and pray for the future. And
yeah, time will tell. What happens in the next few weeks, too, will be imperative.
Yeah.
See if people keep to what they said they do. And
I deeply appreciate the time with you and to be able to learn from you and with you.
Well, when is that deadline when they're supposed to start disarming? I think it's supposed to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So it's
certainly the next couple of weeks. It's going to be an interesting ride.
Yeah, it's going to come up here pretty quick. Where we're going to.
It's interesting that we don't know all 20 of the exact points of what's what. Only the hostages part. So what we really know of the agreement.
Well, we know that the next part was disarming, and we know that right after the disarmament, the third portion is supposed to be a new government in Gaza. And it specifically states, I read part of it, that says it cannot have Hamas leaders and it cannot have current Palestinian leaders in it.
Right.
So current Palestinian leaders have to step down, period.
Tony Blair is involved. Trump is. It's going to be an interesting ride.
And then after that, the next step is reconstruction. And that's where Egypt, Pakistan, Jordan, everybody pulls in because there's going to be a committee, a reconstruction committee with Trump's going to be on it. I think there's a few European nations. I think France is going to be on it. Germany's going to be on it.
Maybe this is God's reason why there's so much oil money there.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that like I said, Pakistan's going to be on it. Jordan's going to be on it. Egypt's going to be on it. Saudi Arabia's going to be on this. And it's going to be a reconstruction committee to rebuild Gaza. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of money in it. And the surprising thing about that reconstruction is that the vast majority of the money to rebuild it is supposed to be coming from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and oil.
Right, not ours.
It's not our money.
And Saudi Arabia over the years has shown they couldn't care less about the Palestinians in Gaza.
No, but yet they're going to, I think they see that they can make money off of this. And I think Trump showed them how they're going to be able to make money off of this whole transaction. So I think that's why they're in it for. Then obviously I think the Ukraine war packs into this, a lot into this, because you've got Europe right now that's buying a significant amount of oil from Russia. And Trump is trying to doing everything he can to get them to stop buying oil from Russia. And so putting Europe together with the Saudis and all these others, and I guarantee there's behind the scenes negotiating where Europe is going to start transitioning their oil purchases from Russia to the Middle East with the caveat that the peace sticks, which in Trump's perspective kills two birds with one stone, right? Keeps peace in the Middle East and forces Russia to have peace over there, because he's supposed to be meeting with Putin in the next couple of days in Turkey, and Turkey's part of this committee. Turkey's on the committee for the reconstruction in Gaza.
Well, he's pretty transparent with what he can tell us.
I think he's not that. I think I'm putting two and two.
Can tell us.
I'm putting two and two together here, and I'm totally seeing Europe starting to shift their oil buying from Russia to the Middle East.
That's awesome.
And
that would be great.
Trump using that to kill two birds with one stone. Well,
that would be great.
I think it'd be awesome. So this is God and Country. Look forward to the coming weeks. Hopefully the government opens back up. I just saw Representative Kennedy of Louisiana say that he does not think the government's going to open up until after Thanksgiving.
Wow.
He says personally, from my personal conversations, this is going to be the longest shutdown in U.S. history. He says that's how bad the negotiating is on the other side. He says it's not happening. So we might not have ICE or Border Patrol or Senator Mike Lee on until December.
Shit.
Interesting.
Because we're supposed to have ICE, Border Patrol, and Mike Lee on. So we'll see how long this lasts. I know there's a lot of pressure coming from the military side because he just got the military paid. I actually was talking to my son late last night. I was talking to him, and he missed 2 paychecks because my son's in the Army. And they missed 2 paychecks already, and they said they just got paid because Trump obviously is taking tariff money and paying the troops. And then the second he did that, the Democrats have now taken that to court to try to stop him from doing that.
We don't like that. Don't pay our military.
Don't pay our military. And I'm like, so how, I was asking my son, so how is it amongst you guys about not getting your paycheck? And he says, no, it sucks. It hurts because we can't buy anything. We can't pay for anything because they have to pay for their own laundry. The military provides food and housing, but nothing else. So they have to go pay for their own laundry. They have to go pay for a lot of this other stuff, and they can't do anything. And a lot of the military are
What
not
a
living
crazy
on bases
world.
where everything's covered for them. And yet you've got people trying to sue Trump for not paying them. So we'll see if it lasts till Thanksgiving or not. I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of pressure being put on Democrats by their own constituency to start folding. So we'll see how that works out. I did touch base with Angel Studios, and so they should be getting back to us and see if
I'm on my way to go see Truth and Treason right now.
Truth and Treason right now. So we'll see if they get back or not and come up this coming week. If not, we're still going to have them coming up the week after the 14th of November. But look forward to everything with God and Country. Please like, subscribe, and share. Again, YouTube is suppressing us with our impressions. So please help get us out. Become listeners, not just subscribers.
Grateful for all of you.
Appreciate everybody here, and we will see everybody next week.
Thank you.